Well, this is Women's Week, even as we anticipate to celebrate the International Women's Day of course, over the weekend, that is 8th March, as is done annually. Just here with very key voices, looking at what exactly has been done, what ought to be done. Ladies, thank you for staying with us. Femicide. If you look at the records, they have put it that 2024 was the worst year on record, and as far as femicides are concerned, we saw protests, women just marching and saying, "End femicide now," especially in Kenya. Some cases still not concluded to this point in time. Very, very serious, dismembering, body parts thrown out in public, not really knowing who you chatted with on Instagram, you're lured for some reason, and going just beyond that victim blaming. But I want to just start with Virginia, because there's something that Esther said when we took a break, that how do we bring men on board so they don't feel like this is antagonistic? And you keep mentioning society. Are they not part of society?
They are.
And where are we in as far as the task force that was put together by President William Ruto to check on femicide? Where are we?
Okay, thank you for that. And just borrowing from the conversation we were having, I just wanted to pose a question, even before I respond to that. And not just a question to you, but just to our listeners as well. When we say women are being empowered too much, that now the man is being forgotten, we also have to look at why this is the case, in the sense of why is this mentality existing. And maybe the idea behind this, and this is just a suggestion, in the sense that before, when patriarchy was there, the idea was that the man had the power. The man had the power not only to control other things in terms of property, but also women. So now when women are getting empowered, it means that power is diminishing. So when the man feels he's disempowered, it's not he's disempowered because he does not have the skill. He does not have the opportunities. He's disempowered because he does not have the power he used to hold previously, when the woman was not just as empowered. So maybe we also need to shift our mindset in terms of how we're looking at power, because the idea behind our understanding of power is what is going to shift our mindset when it comes to things of gender equality. Now, as we're talking about issues of femicide, of course, we have seen the cases over 2024. And 2024, we experienced a high rise of a lot of these femicide cases. And of course, as FIDA Kenya, we did a press statement on the same. We took part in the march as well. We have really tried our best to also offer legal support and psychosocial support to the families who are affected by this. And the idea behind this is because we realize, even when we try to do our advocacy, and especially because we realize a lot of the narratives when it comes to the victim blaming, the young population, there's a mindset that the women who are getting killed because of such cases, they deserve it by virtue of the fact that they were looking for money, they were too greedy. And we've seen some of these comments actually coming out on social media, where we would even have people who are well known coming out and really saying some of these claims that we have to really investigate and see, are we really understanding why this is a problem we are facing as a society? And the reason why femicide was getting a higher focus, and maybe it could also be that the lack of reporting, because one of the challenges that we have had as FIDA Kenya in terms of just trying to create access to justice is when we're looking for data, there are various reports giving us different data. So for us as FIDA, we work with the gender sector working group for Nairobi County. And I know for us, we were trying to see how best can we consolidate data amongst ourselves, especially the stakeholders, so that we can come up with, if it's a monitoring tool, that we actually can say, from this period to this period, this is actually the number of cases. And it's not a different number for different organizations.
So reporting is a big challenge. So we really need to have the statistics when it comes to the femicide cases. And then we also need to evaluate why are some of these cases being as rampant as possible. So maybe there's the idea that was being shared in the sense of most of these women are not economically empowered, then does it mean that because most of the women do not actually have the economy, the power when it comes to finances, maybe they're more vulnerable when it comes to some of these cases? So maybe some of the things we need to also evaluate is, in terms of our mindset, in terms of the culture, in terms of the norms that we have, are they the same norms that are actually perpetrating femicide as a form of violence against women? All right, let me hear from Josephine, because economy, power, finances, and looking at the age group, 18 to 35 remain very, very vulnerable. That's pretty much near your prime, is it? How do you relate those things, including sexual assault, to femicide? Yes.
Okay, you'll find these are small girls, let's call them very young women or young girls. They're out there looking and placing their foot. Where are they going to put their foot? And you find that the people they meet are more older than them. And I would relate these to mental health, because you find, sorry to say this, it's not it's not a discrimination or anything.
Okay.
You'll find in that age group, most of these children are of single mothers. So you'll find from grassroots, from back home, what is it that they have been growing seeing? Have they been growing seeing fighting couples or the fighting parents, so to say it? So they're out there placing their food so that they can feel themselves, because it's not well at home. So they're facing cruel men or older women. Look at even going way of the, it's not a point of discussion, but going of the LGBTQ way. So you find how they're finding it is what is leading to all this, but I will associate it more to mental health as well. Yes.
Someone challenging me, I'm coming to you, Esther, will again bring up the conversation.
Yeah.
When men are killed and battered, who speaks up for them?
Who speaks up?
Does it
for
have
them?
a name?
Sure.
You know, those are the conversations, because these are your sons,
Yes.
our brothers. So someone actually wrote down and said, so when men are killed, what do you call it? Just for
Wow.
Well, I think we'll disagree a lot with this guy, because you remember when there was a lot of killing of young boys, and when we were hearing about the Mungikis and the groups that were organizing 10, 15 years ago, I think the entire country, men and women, really took possession and said this must stop. So I think even if it was not named, when young men were being killed, women were really rose, and they came and really made a big cry.
Yes.
And it was stopped. So I do believe that for us to stop this killing, whether for men or for women, it is actually both men and women's responsibility. And we've seen this happen before. And for me, where I sit, in addition to what Josephine talks about mental health, which I believe the many outbursts that we hear from our politicians on the air in public domain, I think it's creating a culture of desperation, a culture of lack of respect among ourselves, within our own families, within our communities, and really the political class has to check themselves.
Yes. All right.
We have to stop this outburst, the whole abuse that we do, we talk recklessly, and these children are watching us.
They're watching us.
All right.
The people have become so dehumanized. And political class is not given direction. But I also wanted to come to this question of power. I don't have to have power for you to lose power. There is a difference between power over and power within. So we can actually all have power. And the power that I gather doesn't have to mean that you lose power.
Right.
Actually, I could accumulate power that actually supports you to have more power. And this is why I like working with grassroots women.
All right.
Because that is what they have managed to know better than we do. They build on solidarity economy, where they all come together and gather the resources that they have. They gather the wealth that they have, and they are all benefiting from it. And some of these things you're talking about, femicide, because Grassroots Kenya with CRU and CCD, they are a big project funded by MasterCard Foundation. And they've been really surfacing these cases. But they are not only addressing the cases of femicide, but because we are working with grassroots women that are in the communities, they are working on strategies that are stopping. They are preventative strategies. They are not only responding strategies. And this is why we must be able to appreciate and build on the work and the solutions that grassroots communities that give us.
And I want to come back to that, because I'm expecting that the woman in Turkana watching this morning can access justice.
Of course.
Yes. And it can be quite expensive. Let me come to you. And I want to hear from Josephine as well. But when it comes to that, look, we now hear that there are men who are accessing feeders intervention on ADR, mediation, arbitration, and just alternative dispute resolutions. Is this correct?
Yes, it is.
Please enlighten us more.
So for FIDE Kenya, of course, we work to promote the rights of women and children. However, when it comes to cases of ADR, especially mediation, when it comes to women custody and maintenance cases, And these are cases where it's the man as the father, and then there's a woman who's the mother of the child. So a lot of this ADR is offered when it comes to a lot of these cases, especially when you have two parents who are not necessarily a couple, but they're co-parenting. So for them to be able to come up with an agreement, or for them to agree in terms of responsibility, we usually have mediation, just for them to agree in terms of terms and agreement. However, mediation also applies, especially in other cases, if we have other matters where, because for us, our policy is to start first with mediation. So we want to try and bring the parties together, because again, litigation, as you've said, is expensive. It also is time consuming. So the idea behind ADR is to have expedited matters, expedited justice. So the idea behind this is where there are cases where it's mediation, it's ADR for child and custody cases, when it's ADR, even when it comes to other matters, we are still able to offer that support. Now, when it comes to further support, we are able to refer the male clients, to our other partners who can support them. But yes, it is true that we offer that support, and especially when it comes to interest of the child, because we do consider the best interest of the child.
I brought this up because there's a bit of anger in certain favor that the justice system could give a woman just because she's a woman. Or if then mediation can help this antagonism go down, we wouldn't even have homicides based on family disputes.
Mediation, and it's good nowadays when mediation is mentioned. I'm very happy because I'm a certified professional mediator. That's one of the ADRs, and you'll find before it goes to the homicide and the femicides and all that, it's because these are couples or parties that are disputing, and you find mediation has not yet been recognized by people. People only know of the courts, the litigations. They go court.
Are you being a bit too general? When you say people,
let me say now Kenyans. Let me just say Kenyans, or rather, the mediation field or the mediation practice has not really been known by the majority of the Kenyans. Court has forever been known that if there is anything, if it is child custody, we have to go the court way. But mediation is something that needs to be embraced, because one, as she said, court can be very expensive, and again, it takes too long and so forth. So the mediation needs to be embraced, because you find mediation, one thing, it's win-win situation. It's all about relationship. We don't need to live together. We don't need to be a couple, but it's the fact, it's about the child. Can we discuss about this child and take care of the children? So mediation way.
And even as we're speaking of that, because listen, there is something about approaching the situation, because this is not something that started the other day. The gender agenda has existed, started from the West, localized into Africa, you know, different communities. And there's the concern of, are we getting it wrong in how we're approaching it in Africa? Because there's something people in the West wanted when they took out the brassieres and threw them out in public, and what the African woman really wants.
Before we go there, I just want also to talk about where is the genesis of alternative dispute resolution mechanism. This is borrowed from what our societies have used since time immemorial. You know for sure, if you lived like me in the villages, I grew those days when we were all living in the villages, and we had where our seniors, our fathers and grandparents, our women, our grandmothers would assemble to come and actually discuss if there were conflict. And they didn't have to go to court. They would sort out the differences in a court of people that was already established. I will tell you, in the early 1990s, and in the 2000s, Grassroots Kenya had a wonderful, wonderful process that was known by every district commissioner wherever we worked, called the Community-Led Watchdog Groups. And when Justice Mutunga started to develop the alternative dispute resolution mechanism so that it became part of the legal framework, we were part of the group that were consulted together with FIDA and many other organizations. And this is why I'm saying people like Chief Justice Mutunga realized why to build on solutions that the communities had developed. So, and I like that professionals like Josephine are now using it. And we're also saying that even before we did have paralegals, And the work of paralegals were not just to go to court, but their work was to mediate these cases at the very community
And this
level.
includes women
for the same
and men.
reason, yes, for the same reason that Virginia is saying, that is very expensive, it's unnecessary to spend all the time in court. I mean, we don't have to waste this amount of money. But let's also say this. By the way, I have worked with a group called Men Champions for Women's Leadership.
All right.
And there's so many men in this country that believe and are investing in ensuring that women are in decision-making power. So I think let's not also generalize to think that there are men fighting women. No, there are many men, and I think these are the narratives that we need to crush, because we need to celebrate those men that are doing that work, so that we can also understand what inspires them, what motivates them, so that we can be able to build from that.
Josephine, you do know Martha Karua.
Yeah.
And you have seen that she has rebranded.
Yes.
She, is coming out strongly as the Iron Woman that she's always been. Yeah, you actually followed. Did women fail Martha Karua in terms of leadership?
Not really.
No?
Not really.
But we have 7 governors. I mean, that was the highest number of representative of women in that level in 2022. And I'm coming back to the women's role in either making this gender equality conversation realized or not. What do you think is happening in women's capacity and role to make this realization, happen?
Okay, I would say Martha Karua, our veteran, Martha Karua would have received quite a massive support on the same. But as we started, what I said is, the women, what we need to ask ourselves, are we really there? Are we ready for this? Because we are shouting and fighting out on the woman, the woman, the woman. But where is that woman? Do we believe in ourselves first? Okay. Why is it that Martha Karua, the support, she should be having like 100 women surrounding her, because of course she's our foremothers, She has gone there before us. Why is it that we are not, all the women are not there with her 100%? So it's not a failure, but again I will say, we women, have we really known who we are in this particular sector?
Until we dismantle structural barriers.
Yes.
It cannot be
barriers
the women's
in leadership,
burden.
in political.
It cannot be the burden of the women to actually make women in
Let me hear from Virginia. Virginia, we are about to wrap up because Raila Odinga is calling for the full implementation of the NADCO report, which means everything within it needs to be implemented. So somebody needs to voice the 2000 gender realization fully.
Yes. So thank you for that. And yes, we do agree that in fact implementing the NADCO report will allow for us to realize 2000 gender role. But then let us also remember that there was also the multi-sectoral working group that was actually formed for them to actually come up with a report on the recommendations for the 2000 gender role. So it is even more comprehensive in terms of what are some of the recommendations that they're giving, what are some of the solutions or some of the barriers they've already identified in attaining the 2000 gender role, and then also what are some of the recommendations in terms of us getting to 2027? How are we going to ensure that more women are in parliament? And I just want to write also on the question that you asked, Josephine. Yes. Did women actually fail Martha Karua? Before we even answer that question, we need to understand that there are many barriers that affect women in political leadership. And based on the reports that we've done as FIDA Kenya, 2013, 2017, 2022, we've still realized that the same barriers are recurring. The first one being violence. Electoral-related violence is the highest form of, that's the highest barrier that actually affects women in leadership, and not just women as candidates, but also women as voters. And you realize when violence actually becomes a threat, if as a woman I know, if I go to vote for a woman leader, there are agents, there are people who are there, and my life is not safe, and I don't feel safe actually going to cast it because there's somebody who's watching my vote. You best believe I will not be able to actually vote for the woman as much as I may want to.
Somebody's watching your vote?
Not watching your vote in the sense that they're there with you because it's not allowed, but that's in the sense of knowing that there's no, once you leave, that sometimes, and this is one of the police stations where I was able to observe, where after they vote, they actually come outside and then they're asked, who did you vote for? I told you to vote. And you find some of them actually come with their husbands. And the husband has told you, who did you vote for? Because you see, when you go to the polling station, you're not allowed to go with her to that. So you realize that the challenge is, when we eliminate some of these barriers, the other barrier is financial constraints. We also have culture and gender norms. So when we actually eliminate some of these barriers, we are going to see the leadership for women actually increasing. And then you realize that the need for women in leadership is not just to be numbers, for us to just have numbers, but also when it comes to laws, in terms of formulation, policy formulation, are we having policies that speak to the needs of women? When we have women leaders at the grassroots, in the county levels, are we having laws that actually speak to the women of, if I'm in Machakos, is it speaking to women of Machakos County? The contextual issues are different. And then we also have to evaluate, even the women who are in leadership, are they equipped enough? Do they have actually the leeway to do their work? Because we can see, for example, with the impeachment of Honorable Kawera Mwangaza, she's been going through this proceedings. Attempted impeachment, thank you, of Honorable Kawera Mwangaza. We've seen how the process has been. This has been her tenure, and this was supposed to be 5 years of a woman actually leading. But then you realize that most of her time she's had to deal with the proceedings. So again, we'll come and say she represents the woman, and we're going to say, you know, women are not working. But are we actually giving these women an opportunity for them to work? The barriers are still there. So as Esther has mentioned, that unless we actually eliminate the structural barriers, we are not actually going to go far with the conversation.
It's a whole, you know, long way to go. But you guys are saying a lot of milestones equally achieved.
Just to finalize.
And I have to go. That is Virginia Kibunja, who is the Legal Program Officer, FIDA Kenya. Josephine Irungu, HR Business Strategist. Thank you for joining us. Esther Muiru, founder, Grassroots Kenya. This was really impressive. I enjoyed every bit of it, and I hope the viewer did as well. I'm reminded of this interesting saying, women are like tea bags. You don't know how strong they are until you put them in hot water. This one's here in hot water.
Let's not forget the International Women's Day that is upcoming.
Yes. All right, and I have to go, really.
Yes. It's upcoming. We'll be having a celebration on 7th and 8th at KICC.
Okay.
Yes.
And we are at People's Dialogue Forum. The same. All the way up to 8.
We will follow you guys on social media. My name is Anki Doris Ambata. Enjoy your night. And of course, Martha Karua will be here tomorrow night with Jesse Rogers and Ashley Mazuri. Don't miss that conversation as we anticipate the 8th of March 2025. Good night.